All right. This one is Abraham came into contact with a king that he temporarily sold his wife to, pretending she's his sister, and this was the second time.
Hmm.
Decades later, Isaac came into contact with the king of the same name and sold his wife, pretending she was his sister. Like, does this all seem strange to you?
First question, where does it say that he sold her?
Well, I didn't mean sold her. I'm like let her live with him for a while until God had to bail him out of his jams.
Well, I mean, okay, so I mean, I don't see what's wrong here.
Okay, so Abraham sold his no, I
That's
didn't mean not sold, like
right.
gave his wife to the king.
Okay.
This was the second king he did this to, and the second time he did this. But decades later, his son comes into contact with another king of the same name and sold his wife, pretending she was his sister.
All right, so for Isaac, did he sell or did he give?
Give.
Okay, just making sure because you used the word sell again.
Yeah.
All right, so all right, they then, Abraham gave his wife uh to him, and Isaac did the same thing. So I don't think that's strange at all. I mean, I think that's just what the text says and
You
what
don't
they
think it's
decided.
strange? You don't think it's strange that he sold it to the same king, if it is the same king, if he lived that long,
Yeah, I mean, how long do you think
and
that
the
was?
king was fooled by this twice?
Yeah, how long do you think that the was by the time that Abraham gave him?
I don't know. Could have been a son with the same name.
Could be, but according to some of the scholars, it's the same king because it's really not too far off. I mean, if you're focusing on Abraham and then going to Isaac,
And none of this seems strange to you.
nope, I don't see why.
I don't know. One might think they were oral tradition. They were telling this story about one of their ancestors going through this situation, and they couldn't. They could no longer remember which ancestor it was, so they attributed that story to both of them.
To what? To both who? The Abraham and
Abraham
Isaac?
and Isaac.
Or it could just be that they managed to meet the same king and do the same thing. There's another possibility.
Yeah, but that's kind of far fetched.
How's that far fetched?
I don't know. It's coincidence, I guess.
Okay, so then the same thing could be said about Jesus being the Messiah and the Savior. Oh, it so much happens to be a coincidence that he was born on this day. Oh, so much of a coincidence that he did these particular things that were in total conformity with the Old Testament. Such a coincidence that he resurrected in fulfillment of the prophecy on this day. I mean, people can
that
say all kinds
that
of things,
that's fulfilled prophecy.
right? But people can say, well, that's coincidence too.
Yeah, they could.
Right, but are they right and justified in doing so?
Not really.
And so I could say that people can say this is coincidence, but they're not justified in doing so because they would have to then provide with evidence the other model. And so far, we have evidence that the testimony of the text relays that they encountered this person. We have no reason to doubt these accounts. And so, concerning that, I think it's very fair to say we take them at the word, and that the oral tradition, if you want to talk about the oral tradition, was very reliable, especially concerning the Jewish person's mind. They were more focused with oral tradition than most of the than some of the cultures we have today, because back then, especially if you look at the Greek philosophers like Plato and such, if you're going to go to Jesus's time for the New Testament, but even then, the Talmud also talks about the training and the mentality of the ancient Israelites, and that was to memorize, say, the Torah and all this stuff. So the stories and such that were done to be memorized were done with pinpoint precision accuracy because there was a great emphasis on memory skills than we do today. So, in other words, people can memorize word for word hours worth of speech and recite it to you word for word as if they were the one giving the speech. And they could do the same thing with retelling and passing down the stories of what had happened in the past. So I think it's very safe to say that concerning the stories of Abraham and Isaac, it is very safe to say that we know that this happened, and it's not just simply a coincidence. This is just something that happened, and I don't see why that would seem strange.
And this this king with the same name, he wouldn't think to remember that he was deceived in the same way.
Deceived.
Yeah, into thinking that Sarah was Abraham's sister instead of his wife. And Isaac's wife, Rebecca, was his sister.
Well, I mean, he didn't know who Isaac was.
And whenever they were given to the king, God would cause the king's problems as if it was his fault.
Okay. I mean, I don't see where, again, they don't see how he could be deceived. There would be deception, or that how he's not see it. Because here's the thing. He cannot see it. And then when it goes on to the next one, Isaac's a different person. It's not Abraham, and it's not Sarah that he's given. It's not his mom. It's a different person. So he obviously wouldn't know at that point. It's not like as soon as that one time, and if he found out, he's like, I'm never trusting anyone who tells me that person's his sister. It's not like that's ever happened. I mean, he did know the person, so he has no reason to doubt.
If I was plagued with curses by God, I would take that lesson to heart.
Right, you would. But are you a 21st century American or an early Israelite or Philistine?
Yeah.
Well?
Yeah.
Yeah, what?
Yeah, I'm a 20th century person.
Okay, so you're a 20th century person, but I say 21st century as in you're here right now, influenced by the culture, but in the culture of the 21st century, modern day America, and back then they didn't think and focus on things like that. Just like in certain areas, when they say in war texts that they're going to kill all of them. Doesn't literally mean all of them, because we have ancient Near Eastern texts that show the same thing. But whenever they do that and claim that they killed them all, there were still more people. The only thing is that these are over-exaggerating, hyperbolic literary devices that were used. And so the same thing can be understood that if, in one instance is the case,
the culture
is going to be different.
I could repeat an objection onto that point you just brought up, but that would be another question.
Right. So, I mean, so far, I don't see where this would be strange or a problem so far from what you said. So, I mean, does that help answer, or is there any other things you want to go over for the clarification of that question?
Well, there's another strange one, but I'll leave that for the next round.